the phenomenal world and seeing emptiness at the same time. And that's what's being indicated here. And it said, also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya-Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. So now we have Avalokiteshvara. Avalokiteshvara is the Sanskrit word. In Tibetan, it's Chenrezig. So Avalokiteshvara is, of course, the Buddha of compassion. And actually the word Avalokiteshvara, Avalokita, the first part of that word, means to look out on sentient beings. That's what it means. Avalokita means to look out on sentient beings, and implicitly in there it means to look out on sentient beings with compassion. And then the second part, Ishvara, is often translated as something like Lord or capable one. So Avalokiteshvara, and the Ishvara here means Lord or capable one, means someone who has a lot of capacity to dispel suffering. So Avalokiteshvara is the Buddha of compassion, the one who looks out on sentient beings with compassion, has a lot of capacity to help liberate others from suffering. So that's what Avalokiteshvara means, usually translated into Tibetan as Chenrezig. But here, it says Avalokiteshvara is Buddha, a Buddha. But here it says the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya-Avalokiteshvara. So the word Arya means that the Avalokiteshvara is definitely someone here who's directly realized emptiness, but he's called a Bodhisattva, not Buddha. The reason he's being called a Bodhisattva, because if you're a Buddha, you're not a Bodhisattva. Bodhisattva becomes a Buddha. So here, even though Avalokiteshvara is a Buddha, to the audience, he's appearing as a Bodhisattva. Why? To help them understand how to become a Buddha. And we see Avalokiteshvara being referred to as a Mahasattva as well, not just Bodhisattva. So remember, Bodhisattva, Bodhi is enlightenment, Sattva is courage or strength. So a Bodhisattva is someone who has the courage or strength to strive for enlightenment. But also he's called here a Mahasattva. Maha means great. So Mahasattva here is really talking about great courage or great intention. And so what we're talking about, great intention or great courage, is he's working solely for the benefit of others. Of course, that's what a Bodhisattva does, works for the benefit of others. But to emphasize that fact, they add the word Mahasattva to make it more direct. So that's why the word Mahasattva here is to emphasize the fact that Bodhisattvas are not only having courage or strength for enlightenment, they have the courage or strength or intention solely to work for the benefit of others. And it says here that Arya-Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom. So here it says, before it said the Bhagavan was absorbed in emptiness, but here it says Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice, meaning that appearing as a high-level bodhisattva, Avalokiteshvara was not absorbed in emptiness, but he was just reflecting on emptiness.
What's the difference? Yeah.
The difference is, if Avalokiteshvara really were a bodhisattva and not a Buddha, and he was absorbed in emptiness, he couldn't be present with the audience because he's absorbed in emptiness. Whereas a Buddha can be absorbed in emptiness and be present. So that's why to the audience he looked like he was just thinking about emptiness. Because he's with the audience, but he's just thinking about emptiness. He's not absorbed in emptiness. Because if he was absorbed in emptiness and he really were a bodhisattva, he wouldn't have any he couldn't be present with the audience because he's going to be the one who's giving the answer. So he needs to be present. And it says, he looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom. So again, perfection of wisdom is a realization, a direct realization of emptiness supported by bodhicitta. So he was thinking about this practice, and it said he beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. So there's a lot to be said here, and we'll cover these in detail later. But just to briefly give comment on that phrase there, those 5 aggregates, the 5 aggregates is a way of dividing up the person. And we'll look at that division in the next session.
What's the meaning of aggregates? What's the meaning?
The 5 aggregates is a way of dividing up a person. One simple way of dividing up a person is into 2 parts, body and mind. So in the 5 aggregates, the first aggregate, and we'll look at this next session, is called the form aggregate. So that's talking about the body. The other 4 aggregates, collectively, is the mind. So here when we're talking about 5 aggregates, we're talking about the basis of the person. The body and the mind. If we simplify, we can say here, the body and mind also is empty of inherent nature. Which means the word also is implying not only is the person empty of inherent nature, but the basis of the person, the body and mind, are also empty of inherent nature. And what this word inherent nature means, this phrase empty of inherent nature, of course, is emptiness. And the reason this is sort of put like this here is that, remember in the Four Noble Truths teaching, the problem is only how we see the person. The rest of the world is okay. So actually in the Four Noble Truths teachings, the body and mind do have inherent nature. If they didn't, they wouldn't exist. Whereas here, we're explicitly refuting that by saying that the body and mind also, meaning not just the person, but the body and mind also are empty of inherent nature. And so we'll look at these 5 aggregates and what this word inherent nature means in detail starting next session. But what this also is implying is that when we come to investigate how things exist, we start with the person. That it's often recommended as part of our emptiness practice, how everything exists. First, we investigate the person. How do I exist? And then we can turn our attention to the body, the mind, and other phenomena. And so that's what we're going to do starting next session, is we're going to start next session with a meditation on investigating me, the person. How do I exist? Because that's what's being indicated here. That's where we start.
You said otherwise they wouldn't exist. Can you explain that?
In the Four Noble Truths teachings, and you'll find in Buddhism there are a number of different philosophical systems that arose in India on the basis of the various teachings. All of those philosophical systems, except the one that we're talking about here in the Heart Sutra, all of those others say if something exists, it must be findable. We must be able to point to it and say, there it is, meaning everything must objectively exist. It must have inherent nature. Otherwise, it can't exist. The school, the idea we're following, this idea of emptiness, is saying the exact opposite. Is that nothing has inherent nature. What that means, we're going to look at. Okay, it's time for a morning tea break. So remember, we're in silence mode, so if you really need to talk to someone, have a cigarette or use your phone, other side of the car park, over the back. And we'll come back at 11:15.